It's September 25th, 2006. We're at the Louisiana Superdome in New Orleans. The Atlanta Falcons are getting ready to punt to the Saints early in the first quarter, and no one knows the history that they're about to witness. You probably do, and you probably also remember just a little bit about what led us up to this point. But right here, it's been such a long road just to get to this. These players, these fans filling the stadium, they know tonight is so much more than just a football game. It's worth reliving a moment that will signify the rebirth of an entire city. And for that, let's rewind. Let's start with the home team. These Saints look just a little different than they did a year ago. In 2005, New Orleans went an uninspiring 3-13, which gave them an excuse to move on from a few pieces. After just one playoff appearance in 6 years, head coach Jim Haslett was let go. The quarterback who started for the majority of Hazlett's tenure also moved on, but Aaron Brooks had become expendable after a Saints offseason gamble. New Orleans landed Drew Brees after Miami opted to trade for Dante Culpepper. The Dolphins were reportedly scared away from Brees due to the major shoulder injury he suffered at the very end of the regular season. At this point, the jury's still out on whether or not that decision was short-sighted by Miami. But for the Saints, if this hits, they've secured a franchise player who still hasn't reached his potential. Brees is coming off a career year in yardage, doing so in an offense where LaDainian Tomlinson stole the show. New Orleans was optimistic, in part because of the new coach paired with the new quarterback. Replacing Haslett was first-year head coach Sean Payton. Payton had spent the last 3 years in Dallas, helping run the offense while serving as Bill Parcells' assistant head coach. While the Payton-Brees combo was a good start towards fixing an offense that forgot how to score a season ago, there were more moves to be made. And it helped to have the second overall pick, which let them get Reggie Bush. Coming off a Heisman Trophy winning season at USC, the Saints' new toy would serve as an immediate big play threat. He'd also help take some of the load off Deuce McAllister, who after 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons had his 2005 shortened by an ACL injury. In that same draft, they also bolstered the offensive line with Jyree Evans, got some defensive help via Roman Harper, then took a 7th-round flyer on some wide receiver out of Hofstra. And jumping ahead a little bit, once real football began, everything clicked. In a Week 1 victory, McAllister rumbled for 90 yards on the ground, Bush went over 100 yards from scrimmage, and Brees connected with Marcus Colston for a touchdown. Week 2, the result didn't change. Bush again was a threat catching balls out of the backfield, Colston notched another touchdown, and the Saints were undefeated heading into Week 3, their home opener. And home opener rarely has as much meaning as it does here tonight. The fact that they're in New Orleans, the fact that they're actually in the Superdome, it's a welcome sight barely a year after Hurricane Katrina. The last time football was played inside this building was the 2005 preseason. On August 29th, 2005, Katrina made landfall off the coast of Louisiana. We all remember the images of destruction or stories of heroism that came out of the aftermath of the hurricane. You don't need me to tell you about the devastation or the government's failures in response. But even before Katrina hit, the Saints' future in New Orleans was in doubt. In April 2005, owner Tom Benson put off talks with the state of Louisiana about stadium negotiations. With a lease running out, he wanted to wait until after the season to discuss the future. This led to theories that he could be ready to move the team, possibly to the other LA, maybe Albuquerque, but the destination that seemed to make the most sense was San Antonio. Benson's attorney made the case pretty plainly, saying Tom has a house in San Antonio, a ranch in San Antonio, and business interests in San Antonio. He likes San Antonio very much. The catastrophic effects of Katrina only ramped up this sort of talk. As the wind tore holes in the Superdome's roof, further damage to a building Benson already was hoping to replace, or at least get the state to pay for renovations to, it seemed like a guarantee this would give the owner an out. The damage was bad enough, it looked like they would need to demolish the stadium. a move that would only make it easier to void the contract and allow another city to step in. That last part would at least be the case for 2005, as the Saints had to play their home games in New York, Baton Rouge, and San Antonio, giving fans a look at their potential future. But as Benson continued to claim he was open to anything, Commissioner Paul Tagliabue stepped in to make sure New Orleans would keep their team. He met with Benson, who by that time was receiving offers to buy the Saints from people wanting to stop the move, one being Terry Bradshaw. But the commissioner was able to sway Benson, at least for now. He agreed to extend the opt-out clause until January 2007, ensuring the Saints will remain for this season. After the damage was assessed and reconstruction began, the league announced in February that the Saints would return to the Superdome for their home games, with the grand reopening happening September 25th. So, tonight. While the city is still recovering, it's already been a night of rebirth, a return to something familiar. A chance to cheer on their team in what is a pretty big matchup despite it only being week 3. That's because their opponent, although punting right here, is a threat to take the division in what could otherwise be a storybook season for the Saints. The Atlanta Falcons are also undefeated, coming into the game with an offense still working out some kinks, but are a threat to run up the score regardless. That's primarily thanks to Michael Vick and Warrick Dunn. Vick's still trying to be the total package on the field that he is in Madden, but that didn't keep him from being the league's 8th leading rusher through the first 2 weeks. Dunn has been even better, going over 130 yards in both games. Their incredible ground attack is paired with a defense some believe to be even more talented than the unit that led them to the NFC Championship just 2 seasons ago. And while their wins to open the 2006 season came against 2 teams who didn't look to be offensive powerhouses, holding a pair of divisional opponents to a combined 9 points is no small feat. The second win was without their star offseason addition, John Abraham. Atlanta traded for the longtime Jet, who provided an immediate return in week 1 with a pair of sacks and forced fumbles. But during that impressive Falcon debut, he also pulled his groin, which meant now for the second week in a row, the defense will have to step up without him. And already tonight, it's looking like they'll need to do their share. Atlanta got the ball to start the game, but failed to do much with it. A 6-yard rush by Dunn was followed by an incompletion. Then, facing 3rd and 4, the Falcons' punting unit almost wasn't needed. Vick rolled out to his left, but one of the other brand new Saints, Scott Fujita, came crashing down on the quarterback. Before he could even wrap up Vick, Fujita knocked the ball from his hands and sent it bouncing towards the sideline. Brian Scott came sprinting up and tried to scoop the ball on the run for an easy 6, but it took a hop through his hands and went out of bounds. And with that, we find ourselves here. Atlanta set to punt, the Saints having just missed out on a chance to emphatically show the city that they're back, and a cast of characters you might not be too familiar with. While there is plenty of star power here tonight, from the players to Green Day and U2 who performed together in pregame for some reason, this play has some lesser-known guys involved. Let's start with the punter. Michael Kanan hasn't been doing this too long, but he's shown to have a decent leg. The Falcons signed him as an undrafted free agent in 2005, and he did enough to beat out the 9-year veteran Toby Goen ahead of the season. They also called on him to handle kickoffs, which resulted in more touchbacks than any kicker not named Neil Rackers. On top of all that, he even attempted a 58-yard field goal, which he missed, but was bailed out when the Patriots called a timeout. When he got a second try, he drilled it.
This time, how about that? From 58 yards, it's good.
So heading into the 2006 season, he was slated to handle Atlanta's punting, kickoffs, and place kicking. But even though the Falcons won their first 2 games, he made just 2 of 8 field goal attempts. So they brought back Morton Anderson and let the punter focus on punting. For the Saints, there's a couple of guys worth pointing out. First off, meet Curtis Deloatch. He has been a Saint for all of 3 weeks after New Orleans claimed him off waivers from the Giants. He appeared in their first 2 games of the season without making an impact on the stat sheet, and here on this punt, that should have also been the case. He honestly shouldn't be on the field. As the return unit went on, Saints special teams coach John Bonamego realized he only had 10 guys. Deloatch was standing next to him, so he was the easy choice to take the assignment. One guy who knows what he's doing out there, though, is safety turned special teams ace Steve Gleason. He played in college at Washington State, and although the NFL didn't draft him, he did hear his name called in October for the XFL. But he never got to suit up for Birmingham, as the Saints signed him to their practice squad and by the spring had designated him to play in NFL Europe. But once called up to the active roster, Gleason found a bit of a niche. He managed to block a punt in 2002, 2003, and 2004. And while the streak ended in 2005, he did notch his first career start at strong safety in Week 7 against the Rams. And now, lined up over the left guard, Gleason's playing on behalf of the entire city. This whole Saints team is. Tonight's more than just a Monday night football game or a divisional matchup. It's a chance to remind New Orleans that the Saints are back. And as the recovery and healing continue, they'll be doing it together. And while just a play ago they had a chance to celebrate slipped through their fingers, there's still plenty of time for memories to be made. As New Orleans begins its rebirth, welcome to a moment in history.
Former Saint Morton Anderson is here for most field goals. Look out, right through! A kick block by Steve Gleason. It is scooped and scored by Curtis Deloatch. Touchdown, New Orleans!
Many thanks to Pro Football Reference and, of course, you for watching. Check out our rewinder of the Malcolm Butler interception, or here's something else just for you. Subscribe to SB Nation, hit the bell for notifications, and comment down below with your favorite made-up line from Star Wars.